So, quick wait. Welcome to day 2. We're going to start with our vendor presentations, and I'd like to introduce Katherine Boyle. She's the Assistant Director, Civic Education for Elections Canada. She's been a leader in education and interpretation, which she's got more than 20 years of experience in developing, delivering, and evaluating public engagement programs. She can talk a little bit more about herself, but she's invested in collaborating with educators within and outside traditional school settings while creating a pedagogically sound resource that are inquiry-based, cross-cultural, and student-centered. And with that, I'm going to call upon Katherine to give her presentation. Welcome, Katherine.
That's great. Thank you, Mano. I'm going to share my screen here for everybody. There we go. There we go. Thumbs up. That look okay, Mano? I can see you in my screen, so great. Okay. Well, I'm going to jump right in. I know that was a really rich day yesterday of conversation, and I'm sure today will be just the same. So my name is Katherine Boyes, and thank you for having me join today. I'm a settler joining you today from Ottawa, from the shores of the Ottawa River, so the Kitchissippi, on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. And as Mano said, I'm in charge of the civic education team here at Elections Canada. And today the presentation will give you just a bit of an overview of our civic education program, which is aimed at those below the voting age. So looking at students that are still in school. We have a virtual booth at the expo today, so please feel free to stop by and to chat anytime. So through all of our program activities, we always come back to one common goal, and that is to prepare and engage future voters to participate in electoral democracy when they're old enough. So we do this primarily by focusing on equipping teachers with the tools and support that they need to confidently teach about elections and democracy. We know that civics and election democracy sometimes is that course that hops around from teacher to teacher. So we really try to give as much support as we can to the teachers that will be doing that in the classroom. This morning, I'm briefly going to go over our educational resources, and I'm going to highlight some of our resources, which include Indigenous experiences and stories through case studies and videos. I'll talk a little bit about our teacher support programs, and we'll discuss how we fit in with different provincial curricula. We have a whole suite of resources that are free, that are nonpartisan, are really turnkey and easy to use, and short. So these resources are all engaging, and they're built around an inquiry-based pedagogy. And all these activities really are going to get your students thinking and really jumping into conversations about issues that matter in their communities. They're all available in various formats, downloadable or online, or free to order. They're in English and French. And we've also created something that I want to mention that we call our language learner versions. And these are for struggling readers. So the language learner versions are really great for any students where literacy might be a barrier to participation. So these students will get the same case study cards to use with the group discussion in the classroom, but the language used on those cards is going to be a little bit easier and more plain language for the students. So this allows the students to still be participating fully in the group discussion, and they're not going to miss out on anything just because of a language barrier. So those can just be selected right on the resources. You can choose the language learner versions. All of our resources were created with the support and consultation of our advisory circle of educators. And they really kept us and do continue to keep us rooted in best practices in education across the country. And in our council, it also included teachers and experts that were from First Nations schools. We had 2 teacher and experts on our group and our committee. So we pilot tested these resources in classrooms across the country, and these 2 things combined, really meant that our approaches have been, these approaches have really helped us developing pedagogically sound materials that actually work for students and teachers. We've tested them, we've made all the mistakes, we've rewritten and adjusted and worked with teachers to make sure that they're going to work in the classroom. So ideally, these are resources that teachers can use without having to worry about if it's going to work or they have to try it first, that they can really just pull them up and use them tomorrow in the classroom. So we have 10 resources now that are, as I said, student-based, inquiry-based, and student-centered and interactive. Their topics include not only the mechanics of voting, but also the broader topics surrounding our elections and democracy. So these resources, as I said, are completely nonpartisan, which is helpful when you're teaching about civics. As I said, they're all available online, either to download or you can order paper copies, as you can see in a picture I'll show you in a second here of what they look like from our website. We have lots of resources on the website, and I'll talk about a few of them in a minute. So I wanted to mention four of our resources that feature Indigenous experiences, stories, and voices. So the first one is Voting Rights Through Time. This one explores the inclusion of First Nations people and Inuit in the federal right to vote. Civic Action Then and Now explores how Indigenous peoples acted to secure their rights in the past to inspire action today. And Does Voting Matter features one Algonquin woman's story about why voting matters to her. And I've included Choosing Our Mascot here too. It's a resource that we have that is for primary students, and it doesn't include specific content, but I mention it here since we've included the names of each of there's 5 main characters that they want to choose as a mascot. And those names are also included in Inuktitut, along with French and English. There's also a downloadable Inuktitut syllabarium chart in this kit that can be used in the classroom. And the 5 characters that were chosen for this activity are much more culturally relevant to Northern communities. So there's a raven, a walrus, a polar bear, a caribou, and a gray wolf. So I encourage you to check out any of those 4 resources in particular. And one other thing I want to mention about our website is that a key feature of our resources is that they're all cross-curricular. So we do have a tool on our website where you can look up either by subject or by province or by course code. So it's quite a detailed machine that you can use. So I encourage you to use that to find resources that will fit with the classes that your teachers are working in, or your province, or your curricula that you're working within. These always change. Our team of teachers is always updating this. So we do try to keep it as up to date as possible. Another thing that we did as a bit of a push during the pandemic was created blended learning resources with Google applications. So a number of our resources now include these blended learning tools, which is great for students that might be doing a hybrid learning. So if you have any teachers that you're supporting that might be have some students that are doing remote learning through internet school, these resources are really great because all of that is already built for you. So you have the template already to use, and you can use that resource either in person, online, or a bit of both. I mentioned earlier the teacher support. So although I did say all of our resources are easy to use and ready to go, we do know that there's also a need for some extra support. So we also know that teachers are strapped for time. So we have some quick, short, they're about 6-minute long videos where some of our teachers will actually walk you through quickly how to use the resource. It's a great sort of crash course before you want to dive in and see if it's going to work for your classroom. It's great for teachers to look at that. But we also, in our teacher guides, we have sort of, tips and tricks that we include for teachers to make it useful. And then we also offer in-person and virtual workshops. So we're always looking to expand our reach for those professional development sessions. And we'd be happy to be in touch to organize something for your school board or your district or a group of teachers that might be interested in doing a workshop. And I'll mention one of our activities that happens during an election. So though all of our resources are built to be used at any time of the year, things do change a little bit for us when an election, a federal election, is called. And we work with an organization called Civics to offer something called Student Vote Canada. And that's a parallel experiential program. Some of your teachers might have done this already, where they get to participate in an election in their school riding, and they're looking at the real candidates and the real issues, and they cast their ballots. So this is a really powerful program, particularly because there's that ripple effect of sort of the kitchen table conversations that happen at home, and it engages families in the whole discussion about elections and democracy. And I'll mention quickly before I end here that we also have been working on some regional delivery models. So we did a project in Manitoba and in the Greater Toronto area where we had a full-time educator that worked to really identify the local needs and to do classroom demonstrations and local workshops. And it was a really great success for us. And so now we're starting to come out of that and expanding and seeing how we can use that model more broadly. So currently we have a part-time educator that's working in New Brunswick to support new civics curriculum that's happening in New Brunswick right now with the pilot program. And we actually are just about to launch a program working in Northwestern Ontario, looking specifically to support Indigenous learners and the teachers that support them. So we've hired an Indigenous educator to work in the area, who's from the area and will work in the region. And we'll be able to really be the face of our program for communities, and we'll work to deliver workshops and resources and support for teachers and students in that area. So again, I encourage you to connect with us online if you want to book anything or to be in touch. We'd love to hear from you. And you can feel free to stop by the Expo booth and ask me any questions that you'd like. I'm always happy to talk about our resources. Thanks, Menno.
Well, thank you, Catherine. Do we have any questions for Catherine before we move on? No, I don't see any questions. Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. And with that, I will pass it on to our Master of Ceremony for the day, Simon Rockefeller.
Kwekwe Sego. Good morning, everybody. This is our second day of our national gathering on Indigenous languages. So welcome on behalf of First Nations Education Administrators Association. We're all excited. We have 290 people signed up for the conference, and yesterday we had 170 people kind of coming in and out of the conference throughout the day. So that was very exciting for us. We will begin our day with a opening prayer from Elder Mike Mitchell, Gaden de Gelo, and I'll turn it over to Mike for a opening.
Good morning, Sego. What's going on? What are you? Nejinicho, so I can't tell you. No one is allowed. Now, do we hear? Scotty going right, we're going to get not to do on a whole lot. That's the way I did. Never again is it. I am Scott. I go. Didn't what don't I get you home, Jat? Don't know there. Bonnie, Chiniga one over the other what's there. Ne only you wanna know and they said do I said he was going yesterday. Look at this any time. Never didn't know what when I got wait no ni when you want teaching or in on there. Don't know did what that so yet this time. Jim Jat. Don't know hey no way Jim Jat there. Ich kann nicht gar nicht. Don't know ich kann noch quatschen. Na du gonna do one ya his. Don't know jag, you will do all. Can you eat on a down hockey? Don't know you do go on, Ladigas, eh? You can't do Donny. When I am a scona, go to what don't I get you from Jad. Do a toga the ori, ne, Kairi go around. They no Nazechi, to the only hockey. Don't know yet you shut tell a duelas, do your ducky. When I am as it, James, I shall start lying dagger. Chidi Quadon Hake, Chihon Jad. One and they were digging the garage, but a sky neg you can neck. Never one other, what you do what cheer. Ned was what Ted don't know when he's around. None of the only yet she shut. I shut on neck a garage when they need that we or ducky. You know what I'm getting edge and that's all he said. There's it, yeah, we go the drain on the hike. Ned couldn't do near Sadik Sagon that you go to Doggy Gatske, near the art. One and the only just to know quite some to what's got to such a time. Never did I go Gania, we go to wait no Scotty going on Gunia, teaching what I don't agree. Down on there on it, next way I did so to the Nactala Guanis and I got on here, negative in there. And the watch car got what I do. So I will go and he just walk with the Guani. When I am at the time, but don't hike it. Jihon Jade, I will go Scana, I go. Daga din ne disangwawi agwegona dene ngwawana. Oniyo anjido adoyan. Oniyo na ne tadawatarun. Onaga din ne agwegona gayu. Na da namjagde runu agwegona ne. Ehni tonhake. Agwegon Iwanisharai Unayama Yuchko, the Inquadeno Maraduke. Mugadi the Chidwan Morado, there's a way I this, they don't have anyone you go. I know we all speak different languages with all our nations across the country, and it is a custom within our nation of the Ganya Geha. Before meetings take place, they appoint one person to offer these words on behalf of everyone else to acknowledge the Mother Earth and the strength that comes from her. We acknowledge the water life. We acknowledge the land and the medicines. We acknowledge the four winds, the thunderers that renew Mother Earth with water. There are two suns. One is the day sun, our elder brother, and one is the night sun, our grandmother. And beyond that is the stars that we see at night that our ancestors had marked out and able to move around at nighttime and admire their beauty. And beyond that, they say to the land of the Creator beyond the heavens, who has provided everything for us to live our life on earth. And also a reminder that we are always to respect all of creation, acknowledge their lives as well as ours. And it comes in our traditional teachings that was passed on to our ancestors. And so those are the words that is a reminder for us to be of one mind, to have respect for the land, to have respect for ourselves, our nations, and all of creation. And those are the thoughts of the day that will open your meeting. To get the next one, you're going to down that too.
Yeah, we'll go, Mike. Thank you very much. So our keynote today is Stace Burnard, Yukon First Nations Education Directorate. We got an email from her, and there was a PDF version of this book, Compassionate Parenting, and we passed it around, and everybody got really excited about it. And I spoke to Stace just before she went to New York City to the US tennis championships, and I was looking for her on the screen but I didn't see her, but she said she was right in the front. The other thing that was exciting about the book is Laura Bode. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's a young Indigenous artist from the Yukon, and she's presently going to art school in I think in Vancouver. But anyway, Stace will probably explain it better than me. But she has a background in clinical psychology and has worked in the field of education for over 25 years as a psychologist and special education consultant. And she's presented at First Nations Education Steering Committee conferences, teacher conferences in British Columbia, NWT and the Yukon, and also parent symposiums and at the International Behavioral Conference in the United States. So we're lucky to have Stace with us this morning. She got up really early to be with us. Yukon time is the same as British Columbia. So welcome, Stace.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for inviting me to this conference. Is there a way should I just open my presentation and share the screen? Pretty much, okay. One second here. All righty. Can everyone see that? Could someone say yes?
We're seeing snow. It's all white.
You're seeing snow. How about
Well,
that?
it's just all white.
Are
That's
you
what we're
seeing
seeing.
that? Are you seeing that now?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so it should say compassionate parenting. Great.
Stace,
Um,
I think you may have to try sharing your screen again. I think you may have shared a whiteboard instead.
all righty. Did that make a difference? Resume share.
No, what you need to do is stop share
Okay,
and then load the PowerPoint that you want to share,
okay.
and then click share screen, and a window should pop up, and then highlight the PowerPoint you want to share.
Right, okay. One second here. I don't know why I have two screens. And you're still not seeing that, correct? Right. Let us just one more second. All right.
There you go.
We have it.
Yay. Okay. All righty. Very good. All right. So you're seeing compassionate parenting.
Yes,
I hope.
we are. You're good to go.
Yay. Yay. All right, thank you. Yes, Simon's correct. I'm coming from Yukon, and I live on Kwanlundun First Nations and Aton Quechin Council land, and I'm thrilled to be here. Originally a Torontonian and residing in Yukon for 20 plus years, so I completely forgot about the time change or the time difference. And so 6:30, I'm going, oh my gosh! For some reason, it dawned on me. So thankfully, it dawned on me. So we ironically had the launch of this book just this week, and I want to give you a little bit of background. One of the reasons that I wrote this book was because after working in education for so many years, I found that we were doing great work, but in isolation. And a bridge needed to be built between what we were doing and what parents were doing, because I truly believe that in order to raise learners, we need a village, and we need a village to encourage creativity and curiosity among our learners. And we couldn't do alone in schools, and we couldn't do it alone in homes. How could we bridge that difference? And I felt this book is one step in moving in that direction. And the reason being is because we ideally innately share values, but we needed to articulate those common values, the common language that we have, the common understanding that we have of our children. And we so rarely talk about the commonalities of how we feel and what we want for our children, whether that be educators or parents. When it comes down to it, when we distill it, it's common values. And once again, I feel it's represented in this book. We created, through the support of YFNED, and then Victoria Gold printed 7,100 copies. That was our first run. We wanted to have a copy in the hands of every single family that requested it. And then I sent, Simon, if I remember correctly, about 200 plus to you folks, so that everyone here could have a copy. And to see if it resonates for you. And in the long run, if it does, and you want to print some for your region, please just get in contact with me and we can figure out a way to help you do that. We have a printer here that's amazing, and it was really a great way of getting those books out. So why a compassionate parenting book? I could have called it a compassionate teaching book. I felt, as I said, that we needed to build bridges with parents and teachers. Both parents and teachers are using this guide. I use it in my practice with families. And the reason is that no one that I've met is born with parenting skills. We learn from each other through talking, through reading materials. And at the same time, I haven't met many teachers that are born with social relational skills. When we went to teachers college, it was a matter of learning content. There's been some shifts. I know UBC has a social emotional learning book, but to a large extent, we're not born with these skills. So I took my 20 plus years of working in Yukon and British Columbia and NWT, working with parents and with teachers in learning how to build connections specifically with sensitive children. That's the origin of the book. But the book has been used with neurotypical children, all types of children. And one thing that we do know, and the premise behind this book, is that children specifically today will not take direction from adults just because they're the older or the elder in the room. They need to have a connection. They need to know that you truly get them, that you validate their experience. So what we've done is we took the best practices and distilled it into an accessible 12 tip guide. And if you are interested, I'm doing a full presentation on November 16th here in Yukon, and I know it will be through Zoom. So you can contact me if that's of interest. Alrighty, so let me give you a little bit of an understanding of who we are. This is the book. So I wrote the content. A biologist had the concept, chose northern animals and related it, the maternal, the mom to the pup. So each of the 12 steps or strategies reflects the relational health between the mom and the pup. And then Lara Bode, as Simon said, it was a 17-year-old Indigenous artist who worked at YFNet and has since become accepted at Emily Carr. And in fact, her artistry will be on the mailboxes in Canada as well. So you'll see those across Canada. So this is who we are. And then I cannot emphasize enough, YFNet saw the book, just like Simon, loved the concept and said, how can we help? And I consult with YFNet. A lot of my clients are through YFNet. So I'm the clinical consultant and trainer for a lot of their staff that work directly in the schools. And they, Lara was working there at the time, and they also supported the graphic designer. So they had a huge role to play here. I would be remiss if I didn't give you an understanding of the values and the philosophy behind the book. I'm not going to go through the book because I only have half an hour, and I'm hoping Kathy or someone could flag to me when I'm finished or when I have 5 minutes. I will take you through a couple of features through the book, but I want to emphasize why and what my thought process and my values are after working with teachers and parents. I truly believe that everyone is doing the best that they can, that to a large extent, we're innately good as human beings. There's very, very few of us that are psychopaths. So I think it's fair to make the assumption and understand that most people, 99.9, are innately good, and everyone is doing the best they can. What do I mean by that? Well, even when I run across people that perhaps that harm me or do things that are socially inappropriate, if I believe that they're doing the best that they can, and this comes from Brené Brown, it gives me a moment to breathe. Because if we see a child or an adult doing something that harms us, if we can step back and say, wait a minute here, they're doing the best that they can. I may not accept what they're doing, but then there's an opportunity to guide. But they are doing the best they can because I also believe another premise is that they're coping with energy. I don't believe that people choose to act in a way that's socially inappropriate. I believe that it's a physiological response. I believe from the moment that you stepped into this seminar to the moment that you're listening to me right now, you have been coping with energy. And what do I mean by that? I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but it's self-regulation. It means the lights in the room, if they really bother you, they deplete your energy because you only have a certain amount of energy in the tank. So if a task is too difficult, it depletes your energy. If loud noise is too much for you, it depletes your energy. If someone comes into the room and says something that catches you off guard or you're feeling anxious, it depletes your energy. And throughout the day, we need to replete it. And we have choice there. We can replete it by going out into nature because nature is one of the most replenishing sources of energy. We can engage in spirituality. We can engage in exercise, or we could choose to eat sugar, or we could choose to drink caffeine. Both of those are obviously not the healthiest choices, and they will not help us replenish the energy. But throughout the day, we're always depleting. We just try and bring it up a bit of a notch. The other thing is that I also believe that all of us are working towards opening up our hearts and being authentic. The more trauma that we hold, the more closed we are. Because when we hold a lot of trauma, it takes a lot of our energy just to make sure that we're safe. Never mind opening up our heart and reaching out to others. So I know as a teacher, and I know my background, my dad was Orthodox Jewish. I carry a lot of fear, a lot of trauma. And for a long time, my heart was closed. I think, that old adage that we're brought to things when we teach things because we ourselves need them. So you will notice that some people become more defensive at times, and some people are more open-hearted, and we're all on the journey, right? We're all on the journey to opening up our hearts. The other piece is, and this certainly comes from any developmental theorist, is that we have an innate sense of belonging. We all want to be in community. It's innate. So if we see an individual who's outside community, perhaps a child who's withdrawing from us, perhaps the child that's walking around the circle and not partaking in the circle, A, they're doing the best they can, and B, they want to be in the circle. They just don't know how to do it. And as I mentioned, trauma, all of us carry it. It's a matter of degrees. Some of us carry it through direct experience. Some of us carry it through epigenetics, as I mentioned myself. Indigenous folks. There's a lot of cultural groups that carry a tremendous amount of trauma in our brains because of the experiences and the epigenetics. The other piece, and this I learned the hard way. I actually thought that if I told a child or an adult to do something, if I had the expertise, they would do it. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. You cannot make anyone do anything. I can't make people do homework. I can't make them go out and take the garbage. I can't make them do anything. But I can model. I can guide. The other piece that we're struggling with, and we notice it in classrooms, and we notice it in friendships, and we notice it in ourselves. We have this technology addiction. I would ask you, how long does it take you to respond to the little ping and answer the notification? How long is that stimulus to your response? How quickly in the morning do you go to your phone or your media? When you're driving, assuming hopefully no one's looking at their tech while they're driving, how soon after you stop the car are you looking at it? The problem with tech, and we're all in it, I have a strong addiction myself, is that it reduces our attentional resources. We know this. There's so many things coming at us. We're used to that level of instant gratification. So for example, listening to me now takes more energy from you than it did in the past. It's really difficult to focus on something that's not exciting. So there's that piece. And the other piece is the dopamine hit, right? The neurochemical high that we get from technology. It's very difficult to get those quick rushes in everyday life. So we need to recognize we're dealing with a different type of audience, whether it be a classroom or whether it be an individual we're talking with. All right, what are we seeing out there? What do we see in our kids? Well, our kids are more peer driven. They don't respond to us because we're adults. They're less responsive to our requests. That's why it's so important that they understand that we get them. The importance of the relationship. I've been trying to instill this in teachers, and it's really difficult when they have a set amount of curriculum to accomplish. It's the Department of Educations that need to start seeing the need for relationship, because children's brains are not available for learning unless they feel that you like them. They just simply aren't. What we're also seeing are what we used to call turtles and tigers, right? So we've got some children that are hypo energy. They're withdrawn. They need to protect self by soothing privately. So they shy away from us. And then there's tigers, right? And those are the ones that we tend to see, that we tend to talk about more, that act out in order to cope with energy, with their anxiety. So really what we're seeing are individuals that are, we're seeing an epidemic of mental health issues. We're seeing more children, more adults that are depressed. There's this line, this sort of baseline of being calm and able to learn, right? Stuart Shanker would say this and many other theorists. And there's some of us that have a baseline that's a lot higher, and some of us that have a baseline that's a lot lower. But if you go to the extremes, then you have anxiety and depression and anger. And I always look at it as a triangle. On the surface, we may see anger, then you might see anxiety, and then typically there's depression underlying it. So we're seeing a lot more of that. And then, of course, people that just check out. And we do it all the time, right? You're going to go in and out of boredom right now. And we go into these dissociative states, and some people for a longer period of time, okay? The other thing we're seeing is what we call, if you will, social learning challenges. And social learning challenges are people that are on the autism spectrum. They say in 10 years, it's going to be close to 1 in 2 people. So there are a lot of people that don't understand social nuance, and we're seeing more of them. We used to say, oh, we need to look at FASD diagnosis. We're not seeing FASD. When I was on the FASD team, we didn't see a lot of FASD. We're seeing autistic children. And then, of course, the trauma. And superimpose upon that the last 2 years, our whole society is carrying, if you will, some angst, some trauma as a result of what we've gone through. And what happens when you're living with trauma is you're living with tension. You could be hyper aroused, looking around for danger, easily triggered. And the key with trauma is that there's this push and pull. There's a fear to connect because people may have harmed us. There's a fear to develop trust, but we need it. We want it. We have an innate need for belonging. So we want to attach, but we're also fearful. Okay. And then finally, we're also seeing a lot of ADHD. And I ask people, hey, before we jump to the conclusion that they're ADHD, could they be just dysregulated? Dysregulated are people that may move around a lot, that may touch things, that may fiddle with things, that may need to have deep pressure. These are not people that aren't able to focus in. These are dysregulated people. So that's what we're seeing. So what does that mean for us as people that are working with children? Because if that's what we're dealing with, and of course there's neurotypical, remember my emphasis is working with children that are more sensitive, and I classify children as more sensitive, not at risk, perhaps vulnerable, but these are sensitive people. So what is our job? Well, as adults, we need to build trust. We need to work on the relational piece. We need to help them calm their limbic system down. We need to ensure that they know we get them because we know they're peer driven. And all the while, we have to be upbeat and joyful and have lots of energy. Oh my gosh, how the heck do teachers and parents do that nowadays? How do you manage your energy so you can co-regulate? We're going to talk about self-regulation because this book, it's like code of conduct. This book really isn't for children. It's for us. It's for us as the adults. Some of the things we need to do, we need to learn how to self-reg. I'll talk about that briefly. We also need to learn how to shift our lens. You know, most of us are born with our brains are primed to see negative, right? They're primed. If you Google emotions, 3 out of 4 emotions are negative. And there's survival reasons why we're primed to see negative, right? So how do we shift into a positive outlook? So I would ask you to think about a couple of things. What are your moments of awe? Each day, what do you see that you're grateful for? What are the simple things in life? I know when I drive downtown, I see the hilltop of Gray Mountain, and it gives me a lot of joy. Sunset, sunrise. A lot of them are related to nature. A lot of them are related to feelings we get from music. So think about the awe moments, the smell of coffee, the joy of laughter. Think about those little things. And if you can get into the habit of gratitude at the end of the day, it really does shift, because they say 75% of our contentment is based on perception. It's not how we're born. It's how we perceive life. Okay. And this is Bruce Perry. Again, we need to learn how to regulate, because unless we're regulated, calm, and available, and we're going to get triggered. So how do we become calm and available? Then we can relate. Then we can build the connections with the children, and only then can they learn. And this is the same in a classroom as in a house. I want to show you this little video, because this will bring home the concept of self-regulation versus self-control. Because when I talk about self-regulation, people say, oh, that's self-control. He needs to control his emotions. No, self-control is a cognitive process. If I said to you, here's a cup of coffee at 6 a.m., but you can't have it till 10, there's a measure of discomfort that you feel. And in order to stop thinking about that coffee, you literally use your mind. You have to distract yourself, but there's still that yucky feeling inside. So here's self-control. Oh, sorry.
Stace, we don't have the sound. Did you put the optimum sound when you, can you pause the share?
Okay.
All right. What you need to do is you need to stop the share, and then when you click on share, there's a little box in the left corner where it says optimize sound.
Okay. Well, you know what? We actually don't need the sound because it's Spanish. So we're
Okay.
good.
All right.
You won't need them in either. Okay, here we go. Oh, shoot. I did it again. 1 second. Self-control. They were able to manage themselves, and until they got the signal, they weren't allowed to touch the food, and yet they wanted to. So they had to distract themselves. That's self-control. Now, I have pugs, so every presentation you're going to see a pug. So back here is a little pug. This is a terrier, but this is the main character you've got to keep your eye on. Same scenario, waiting for food. That's control. But while you're waiting, there is a discomfort. It's called self-dysregulation. How do you manage that discomfort? All right. That's self-regulation. So the pug was waiting, found it too uncomfortable, and needed to do something physical. That's energy. So self-regulation for us is the ability to recognize when we're stressed, if it's lights, if it's people, if it's being in large crowds, if it's the task, and adapting the environment. Recognize what triggers you and find a way to self-soothe. That's the idea. This is one way to do it. Mindfulness. Between stimulus and response, there's a space, and that space is our power to choose or a response. And in that response lies growth or freedom. When you are triggered, you can react, or you can realize it's not about you, right? Whatever's going on for them is going on for them. They may have impacted you, but that's their journey. Our journey, or your journey, is to not react, but to continue to try and regulate and become calm. Is this easy? It's a process. One suggestion is developing a mindful habit, and that is the first page in the book. I will just go over it briefly. It's pause and breathe, because as I said, this book is for us. We need to co-regulate the children who are dysregulated. The only way we can retain that kind of energy, retain joyfulness so that they know that we get them, is by learning our own stressors and how to maintain calmness. And in the most difficult, the most stressful times, they're going to see how we regulate ourselves. Do we react, or is it difficult, and are we able to respond or react? I'm just saying I've got 5 minutes to go. So I'll just comment on this one and the next one. I urge you every day to find something that you do and slow it down. Mindfulness isn't sitting cross-legged and trying to breathe. Mindfulness can be done doing anything, but slowing it down and becoming aware that you're doing it. You will automatically breathe. And remember, it's belly breathing. Breathing in and your belly expanding, not your chest tightening or your belly tightening. Proper belly breathing is expanding the tummy, and when we breathe out, when we breathe in, it's expanding the belly, and when we breathe out, it's collapsing. The other point that I want to bring home to you is we can't make people do anything. That's what I said. We can't force energy, but we can be the model. So I'm just going to quickly go through the titles so you can see the book for what it is. Oh, this is an example of co-regulation. This is my pug. This is our other dog. When she was very ill, Stan just naturally came over and just sat beside her, bringing her that level of calmness. The opportunity to connect every day, to invest in our children, putting down that iPhone and spending intentional time, validating them before we direct them. I see that you're frustrated. Can you use your words, rather than can you use your words? Restoration, restorative circles, choosing your words, restorative phrases are things like I'm here, you're not alone, rather than stop doing that. And I can certainly send the slides. Choosing your words, they reflect our heart. And there's some phrases in the book. Praising even every small little change that someone makes. And then routines, the importance of routines. Why? Because when we don't have routines, we don't know what to expect. We jump back into our amygdalas. If we have routines, it's predictable. We can stay in our prefrontal. Routines are predictable. We don't have to be stressed. And then, of course, what can you control and what can you let go? Having boundaries. Boundaries. Children should not disrespect adults, and also if they're engaged in unsafe acts. But children should not disrespect adults. Is it the moment when they're heightened that we should talk? No, because their left brain is not available. That's the verbal. Use those restorative phrases. And finally, building resilience, learning from our mistakes, and recognizing when they become agitated. And one of the most important pieces, whether it be in a classroom, whether it be in your home, everyone's in a community, everyone's responsible to that community. And when someone's hurt, we need to show the impact on us. And we use I versus you. I was really hurt when you did that. I need a few minutes to recoup. You deserve to take care of yourself as well. So that's it in a short version. You're all going to get copies of the book. Thank you, Simon and Minot and Kathy, for sending those out. And thank you for taking the time today to listen to our little book.
Well, thank you very much. I think we have time for a couple of questions, if anybody has a question. Not sure. Yeah, Stace, when I saw the book, I thought I had read this book. It's called "There Are No Bad Kids." I don't know if you see it. It's a British one, and I was thinking,
Beautiful, Simon.
but I was thinking they're finally getting the Indigenous knowledge, that the spirit comes into this world, and our job is to teach that spirit and to ignite that spirit. Yesterday, there were quite a few speakers talking about the learning spirit, and it's already there, and as adults, we have to nourish it. I guess that's right. Anyways, it's a beautiful book. I'm going to ask Claire a quick question. When people sign up for this conference, do we get their address also?
I have everyone's emails. I have to
Yeah.
check if I have everyone's addresses.
So Stace, what we'll do is we'll just email people, send us your address, and we'll send them out. So
Thank you.
Nice.
And if people want to, I do have some additional copies, not many, but some, and I'm happy to send a few out. If you have our friends, my friends have copies. My teaching friends have copies. So please, if it's just a couple of copies, reach out. And someone asked if everyone's going to get one, and our understanding is that yes, we sent I think 280 or 260, and if more is needed, just please reach out. My address is in the book.
Yeah, we'll send out a note. We'll ask people for their addresses. We'll use the stale mail. Anyways, it's very exciting. Thank you very much. The artwork really, it really also tells a story. I think that's important. Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll be in touch. So we're going to move on to our next presenter, Germaine Conacher, who is a partner at MNP in Indigenous Services. They are our wolf sponsor, and I think Stace talked about wolves in her beginning remarks. So Germain specializes in the duty to consult, Indigenous consultation, and land use studies. She's had 15 years experience working with First Nations, Métis, cultural resource development companies, provincial, territory, and federal governments. And she's done a number of land use studies in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and the Yukon, where Stace is from. So I'll turn it over to Germain.
Well, thank you, Simon. Nice to see everyone today, and thanks, Stace, for your presentation. As a parent and dog lover, you hit on a number of themes that I think resonated with me for sure, and probably with others. So much appreciated. I also didn't realize there'd be a wolf reference right before the wolf sponsorship remarks. So also feels very serendipitous. So thank you for that. My name is Germain Conacher, and I'm coming to you today from Treaty 7 territory, which is also homeland to the Métis Nation Region 3 here in Alberta, so also known as Calgary. This is where I'm based. As Simon said, I'm a partner at MNP, and I lead a practice area called Duty to Consult. And that practice area is really focused on Indigenous rights. And so helping our clients here at the firm kind of advocate and protect their rights when resource development projects are proposed within their traditional territories. I've been doing this work for around 15 years and feel very grateful and privileged that I get to travel across the country to work in communities from coast to coast to coast, and I'm very honored that I get to do that work. So I know everyone's got, has seen that MNP is a sponsor of this event, and we're really honored to be able to sponsor events like this one. And so, you might be wondering, MNP, why is MNP sponsoring an education event? Aren't they just an accounting firm? And we are an accounting firm, absolutely, but we have a team of around 300 people that are exclusively work with Indigenous communities in every province and territory in Canada. We have more than 250 Indigenous governments as clients of the firm. And so those services do range from accounting to audit, but we also offer a lot of consulting services. So the work that I do around Duty to Consult is one of them, but we also have management consulting services focused on education, as well as focused on areas like health and child and family services. There's 125 MNP offices in Canada, so we like to think we're kind of local in so many different markets. So again, like I said, we're really honored to be here today to sponsor this national gathering organized by this group. We really are strong believers here at the firm that improving well-being of people starts with good quality education, and that education is an Indigenous right, a right that is pre-existing, is inherent, and is also a treaty right. So we honor that relationship through the work that we do in a number of different areas. We're also, happy to see that the education administrators have this opportunity to connect and learn from each other, and have this forum virtual right now, but maybe one day it'll move and shift. But it is really wonderful to be able to see everyone's faces this morning. So I'll just maybe spend a little bit of time going over the services that we offer that are specifically focused around education, and the team that we do have that does this really important work. So our education team is also based here in Treaty 7 in Calgary, but does work across the country. So Christina Orbitz, who's also on. I think, hello, Christina, if everyone can see her. And I believe she presented yesterday. So hopefully some of you were able to take in her session. She leads our team of consultants that work in the education space. So it's a multidisciplinary team, which I think is really fabulous because we can bring different expertise to the engagements that we work on. That team consists of individuals with background, those who are educators themselves, accountants, governance, administrative professionals, HR specialists, economists. So we do have that ability to bring different expertise to bear when we work on services with clients. And the things that we work on focused on education are around enrollment projections, strategic and operational planning, performance and organizational reviews, development of budget asks and funding formulas, and feasibility studies. So we're currently assisting a really growing number of clients across Canada. And most recently, many of the projects the team is working on are related to providing regional education agreement support. So that consists of reviewing funding and identifying and justifying additional funding needs. So it's focused on ensuring that students have access to the funding to have good quality education. And so Christina is really passionate about this and has been working to really advocate for clients over the last couple of years to make sure that the funding they're receiving is going to help put those schools and those students in a better place. Some of the recent projects that we wanted to highlight is one, last year the team completed a transportation study for the Assembly of First Nations, and it looked at the true cost of delivering student transportation services in First Nations. And so this report is publicly available. So if you do have an interest, it's on the AFN website. There's also an Excel tool that's available as part of this package, and you can use it to calculate your own transportation costs to help leverage that into discussions potentially around negotiating funding increases related to transportation. And we're also moving into continuing some work with the AFN similar to the transportation study, but it's about needs-based inclusive education costing models. And so in order to develop this model, data will be collected through kind of interviews with different First Nations and First Nations education authorities. So Kristen has asked me to use this opportunity to let you know there's an open survey, and we'd really appreciate everyone who has the ability or time to participate in it, because the more information that the team can get, the better that the work will truly be. So I believe it's on the is it linked to off the AFN website, Christina?
So it's not available yet because the project just started. However, we will be reaching out to folks that signed up for this conference in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. We'll be in touch in November.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So yeah, stay tuned. Keep that on your radar for that coming across your plate. We'd really appreciate any time that you can give to the project and to participate in this to make sure that the data set is as robust as possible. So thank you, Christina. So just in closing, I guess I'll just say, this really is an area that we believe is important. We're honored to be able to sponsor this conference. We are invested in this. I've got a picture of a book that M&P published about 2 or so years ago called Understanding Indigenous Rights. And we do have this available. All the proceeds are donated to a couple charities that support survivors of residential schools. It's also, so we could reach out to Christina if there's an interest in kind of reviewing the book or the materials, and we can send out copies of that. So again, enjoy the rest of your conference. I know you're about halfway through now. And thank you very much for the opportunity to sponsor, as well as to say hello and make a few remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. It's good to see you. And this is the second year that M&P has sponsored us. We're a relatively new organization, and we've worked with Christina before on some workshops, and we look forward to working with you in the future. So a couple of announcements for particularly for me is we're going to be moving into the workshops now, so people get separated. So I think Claire will give us a little bit of instructions about getting into the workshop, but then getting back to our closing remarks after the workshops. Claire?
Hi, everyone. I think most people are familiar with how to jump around Zoom events now. But just in case you want a little refresher, you're going to exit this Zoom meeting and head back to your lobby. In the lobby here, we can see that the workshop 5 and workshop 6, the rooms are already open. So you can hop out of here and click the join button to hop into either knowledge holders, land-based mental health, or First Nations control of First Nations education. And then again, after 12, we're hopping back into one room together for just a short closing. And if you missed anything yesterday, you can head over to the sessions button and watch all the recordings. So instead of where it would usually say join, you can click watch recording and you'll be able to see anything you missed yesterday. So hop out of this meeting, and the next workshops are starting in 2 minutes over in the other rooms.
So I have to go over to the lobby and then come back in. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I did wrong yesterday. So I just want to point out a couple of things. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a couple of exciting town halls coming up. In November, let's see. I'm gonna have to get trained on how to do this too. So I'm trying to open it up. There, got it. So on November 9th, we have Dr. Imelda Purley, who is going to be talking about the work that she's doing in New Brunswick. She's doing some exciting work with school children and older children, and they are, I think one class or one school she's working with, they've got their Maliseet names, and it's really transforming the, I think somebody the other day was saying that, the children are spending more attention in the classroom. So she's going to be talking about the exciting, innovative work that she's doing, and we're going to be sending out some announcements next week, and all you have to do is sign up. It's a Zoom event. And then on November 30th, we have Teresa Edwards. So she's Big Ma from Listigouche. She works here in Ottawa with the Legacy of Hope. And those of you who are familiar with Legacy of Hope, they do a lot of curriculum. They do a lot of work with First Nations, Inuit Métis schools. And they talk about residential schools, day schools, 60 scoops. So she's going to provide us with some of the lessons learned from the work that they're doing. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so we can now shift over to our workshops, and we'll be talking later.